We are about the love of pro wrestling. We are the pre-match entrance and the post-match interview. We are the passion. We are the fun. We are Pete Dunne. We are the tricks, the risks, the crunching drop kicks. We are the wrestling show display. We are Mariah May. We are the spine buster, flailing punch, and brutal knee. We are watching for the count of 3. We are Paul Robinson and Chantel Jordan. We are the art in the ring. We are the bright lights. We are the squared circle and the life of the fight. To re-watch our favorite wrestlers' moments. To live and breathe through the eyes of their opponents. We build the vision for you to explore. Here at Powered 4.
Hello. Hope everybody is okay. I'm just going to swap us over there on the quick one. John Scott here, of course, with all the way from New York, Mr. SP3. I said earlier last week he is the A side of the cassette, the Oracle, of course, powered for SP3. And man, I've got to tell you, it seems ages ago since we last spoke. So I don't know what that says about my week, but how have you been, my friend? How's New York treating you?
New York is good. It is cold here, but there is no more snow, and it's Monday, so you know what that means. It's a whole new week of professional wrestling. I feel like it's been such a long week. It feels so long since we talked because so much has happened in the past week in professional wrestling. So a lot for us to get into today.
Absolutely. I can't wait to dive into some of that as well. Don't forget, guys, if you want to comment or ask any questions to the Oracle himself, feel free to. We're going to be going through a few things today that I'm looking forward to sharing. I laid a few things on you last week, SP3, with the true or false that come out of nowhere. The what ifs, of course, the most diabolical what if. I feel like I've got an even worse one for you this week. What do we got here? We've got a quick question. Shall we take this just quick? This is an odd one, so it's a strange one from our YouTube. Brett Thomas, is Logan Paul coming to WWE? I actually saw this guy. He was on last night on Sunny's show, G&G there from last night, and he was asking that same question there. And I've got to say, much like Sunny, from my end, I've not heard nothing. So SB3 from New York and all your sources, please tell me this ain't true.
I'm gonna hope to God it's not true, and it's just something that he's hoping for, Brett Thomas. But no, I have not heard any information about Logan Paul coming to WWE. However, there's been a lot of connection between the music world and WWE as of late, and a certain multi-platinum hip-hop artist just recently dropped the mic on the entire WWE roster, saying that all of them have 50,000 followers, and he's putting them over by talking about them on his 1 million followers on Twitter. And I am talking about the one, the only, the formerly Little, now just Bow Wow.
Yes, I was. I saw that, and you know, I haven't seen him about for ages. I mean, not that I'm into music enough, but I mean, I just thought, blimey, he's coming. Like, where's he coming out from? And then obviously he's calling out WWE guys. Like, obviously he got the Snoop Dogg connection. You know, Sasha Banks. Like, I'm sure, like that may be a little bit deliberate there. I'm sure there must be something in it somewhere down the line. No doubt. Let's start from the top though. Let's talk about what's been trending and from last night especially, and that is of course NXT Vengeance Day Fallout. Before we get into this, I've got to say Mike Angus brought this up and he said, why did they not revert to the title St. Valentine's Day? What on earth were WWE doing? This incredible marketing machine that we know they are. How did they miss this opportunity? And instead we got Vengeance Day, which is kind of like a hybrid of the old Vengeance logo that they used to use and something else of today. But anyway, that aside, what was your thoughts after this show? Was you impressed? I've got to say the feedback I've seen has pretty much been positive. The only criticism I think I've seen is, and if this can be a thing, is that maybe all the matches were too intense and that there wasn't much letdown in between. But I mean, if that's all you're going to complain about, I would say it's probably been a decent night's worth of wrestling. What was your sum up of the NXT Takeover?
I thought this was quite possibly the best takeover since this whole pandemic has happened, because it's not, I feel like all the takeovers have been strong for the most part since this whole global pandemic. You know, In Your House, Takeover 30, Takeover 31, War Games, all were solid in their own ways. I would say out of those ones, Takeover 31 was the best, but this one, just top to bottom, just had simply amazing professional wrestling on this show. You had 3 really incredible matches with the men's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic finals with MXK versus Grizzled Young Veterans, which in my opinion was the best tag team match that has happened on NXT in over a year, since Takeover Portland last year when the Bruiserweights went against Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. Just MSK's high-flying ways against the Grizzled Young Veterans, kind of grounding and using their cutting. Their styles just mesh so well, and it was just spectacular wrestling back and forth from both sides. And it was a nice change of pace because they followed what, in my opinion, the best match on this show, which was Kashida versus Johnny Gargano. You know me, John. I'm a huge New Japan Pro Wrestling fan. So I've been a fan of Kashida for almost a decade now. The Time Splitter was one of the first tag teams I discovered in New Japan, of Kashida and Alex Shelley. And then seeing his journey from becoming, a tag team specialist to becoming the ace of the junior heavyweights in New Japan. I thought he was in for big things when he came over to WWE. But it's been 2 years and they really haven't capitalized on the momentum and the everything that Kashida has done before his time in WWE. I felt like they haven't capitalized on it in NXT, but this felt like the first true classic for Kashida in NXT, and he went against the perfect opponent for him in Johnny Takeover. This was a vintage Johnny Takeover type of matchup. He was just on the money. Their counters were just beautiful to watch. Great transitions, great sequences back and forth, just incredible professional wrestling. This was a masterclass in how to have a compelling 20-plus minute title match on a pay-per-view show. Johnny Gargano and Kashida just gave you the template for how to have success in that type of matchup. And then the main event of Dunn and Balor, just amazing technical wrestling. That was a clinic within itself, but it was like two parts of a matchup. First part was the technical wrestling clinic, and then it moved into like a war of attrition with Balor getting his fingers destroyed by Pete Dunne. Like I've never seen that dedicated offense to fingers, unlike this match. This match was great. It lived up to the expectations that Finn set at Takeover 31 against Kyle O'Reilly, and then the ending. Like this is what makes the Takeover shows. Like Takeover, the best Takeover events, in my opinions, are the ones that have incredible professional wrestling, but also have an impactful moment, an impactful angle at the end. I feel Takeover New Orleans is the best Takeover of all time because, yeah, it had the 5-star Gargano and Ciampa match. Yeah, it had the 5-star six-way ladder match for the North American Championship, but also had Roderick Strong being heel and joining the Undisputed Era. That's why Takeover New Orleans is the GOAT of all takeovers. This one fell into, like, it was in the top 10 range by the end of the main event, and then it skyrocketed to the top 5 with the angle of Adam Cole not only super kicking Finn Balor, but turning his back and betraying Kyle O'Reilly. And then Roderick Strong kind of was the glue of that entire segment. His reaction, him being stuck in the middle of Cole and O'Reilly, just made that moment even more impactful. This Takeover Vengeance Day is a top 5 takeover of all time. Just a spectacular night of professional wrestling.
Couldn't have sold it better myself. I mean, wow, that you put that over like $1 million there. And I got to be honest, like, what is realistically going to top that for now? I mean, look, we had Wrestle Kingdom. I mean, if we're talking all wrestling, I'll probably put that ahead, but not much.
Yeah.
And considering NXT is, I mean, whatever you are led to believe, is it the third brand? Are they equal, etc., etc.? But this does bring me up to a follow-up question, and just to be a nuisance, really. Like, look, we still get these takeovers where it's just NXT exclusive, so it is very difficult to work out as a fan. I'm not talking about for us because maybe we're too far down that rabbit hole. SP3, we know what to expect with these WWE stuff. But if you're a casual fan, like working out what is what and what is priority and what is not priority, what is more meaningful and what isn't, it's very, very difficult because on one hand they're telling us this is on the USA Network now every Wednesday, competing with AEW, third brand. Sometimes you're going to get, I don't know, a Raw and SmackDown guy go over there to try and bump up the ratings. At the same time, is it the third brand when a lot of the guys, you know, leave there to potentially get new music, new packages when they're seen on Raw and SmackDown? So does anything they did there seem to count? I would say no. And thirdly, like, they're still continuing with the NXT takeovers. So it's kind of like, well, we're not putting them in with the other pay-per-views. We're just going to still segregate them again and have their own thing. And it is very confusing. I still can't tell you 100% what it all means. I hear some things from Triple H. I hear different things from corporate. What do you think is the actual acknowledgement? Is it still the third brand in a lot of ways?
It is the third brand of WWE, and I feel like they established that at Survivor Series 2019 when they included them in that whole brand supremacy. Although we didn't get that, last year in 2020, that was due to the global situation more than them not wanting to include them in it. So I think they are the third brand. From the perception of the fans and how they are presented as a third brand. However, when you look at their contracts, They are not a third brand. They are still
Yeah.
a developmental. You get a developmental deal. You don't get a deal that is comparable or on the size of being on the main roster on a Raw or SmackDown. You get a developmental deal. You get a percentage off of what you would get on the main roster. And that's why guys that are getting called up want their main roster deals and don't want to keep working on the main roster with NXT deals. So I think that it's a two-part question, and I think that's where the misconception comes into for, you know, fans like you and me that listen to the conference calls and then hear what fans are saying. I think that that's why it's a split down the middle, because yes, the perception that they put out there on television, how they view NXT, how they promote NXT, it does come off like they are the third brand, like they are a much improved WWE CW. But when you look at their contracts, they're definitely still developmental because they don't make anything comparable to the guys on Raw and SmackDown.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. And for me, the biggest take, I mean, I really enjoyed seeing Pete Dunne in the main event with Balor. I thought that was fantastic. But again, the ending had left us with so much to talk about as well. So they kind of got like enough stuff there, I feel, to be going on with in the next couple of weeks, at least for TV. I hope they capitalize that on the television show on the Wednesday night, because, you know, there's plenty of stuff to unpack there. But yeah, like you say, as a summary, it's gonna be hard to top this, in my opinion. Let's see what they do in the months going ahead. But as a takeover, I think, you know, this is what I remember takeover being. This is why I used to tune in and have a different expectation for the NXT takeover stuff. So yeah, for me, it was a great show, and yeah. All the best going forward. Okay, we're just going to hit another break. When we come back, we are going to be talking WWE and, of course, more WWE with the idea of how WrestleMania 37, how the layout is actually going to happen here. All that and more when we come back, straight after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Millie McKenzie! She is 5 sandwiches short of a picnic. Casey Owen! Casey
All right, he's back. He's on the other side again as well. I thought I was all of a sudden I was looking at you in Pixel World, thinking I was on the Nintendo again. SB3 goes Nintendo.
That's why we have the ads for
exactly
internet here in New York.
We're not short of them. We're not short of them over here, so that's fine. No, it's good to have you back now. I said before we went to the break, we are going to be talking about the WrestleMania 37 layout, which is got a lot of people interested, especially after seeing the Super Bowl. You know, what they were able to achieve with just 25,000 fans, which is about the same estimate that we're going to have at WrestleMania, of course. And, you know, I've got to say, from the perception I'm getting, I think they can pull it off looking good. The only difference will be SP3 for me is what do they do? Because obviously when you're watching a football game, you're going to use the whole pitch. With wrestling, yes, there's a gigantic ramp. I'm sure they'll make full use of that like they normally do. But you've only got a ring in the middle. So it's like if you have fans just in the stands, that's one thing. But what can they do across that huge flat piece that they're going to have on the field? I mean, that would be the only thing that will look a little bit out of place, perhaps, when the matches are going on. I know that once they got the light in and it turns dark, they can probably do all their amazing magic with the camera. But what do you think, SP3? What are we going to get? And are you interested in this kind of stuff, or am I just being a bit of a nerd?
I was kind of interested in the whole WWE not wanting to put the cutouts in the empty seats, which would have just looked strange. Like, you just got a whole bunch of empty seats, and the fact that WWE saw it on the Super Bowl and just was like, hey, yeah, let's do that. It's just typical WWE. It's like what you expect from WWE. As far as the layout, I can see it where they have it as a mix of what we got with the Thunderdome, with some fans, with some cutouts. I think that, making it a little bit busy, as some would say.
Oh, I think we may have lost him again. I think we've lost you again, Mr. SP3. We'll get back onto him. Let me finish off some of this stuff whilst SP3 tries to reconnect there, because I think he's having some huge Wi-Fi issues. This is the joy of being live. My perception, I listened to G&G last night with Sonny and Sonny G, and I've got to be honest with you, WWE can use the cutouts. That's not a problem. My only issue is what they would do across the flooring, like normally where there'd be seating. I hope to goodness gracious they do not have that plexiglass business where, I don't know, you get like 10, 15 fans just randomly running to each corner when a wrestler comes down and starts banging on it, like, yeah. I couldn't stand that when I saw that at the Performance Center, and I kind of think that takes you out of it a bit, and it might make it from, look a little bit more minimal to where it should be looking a lot more, max out what you can do in front of the big audience. But I mean, for TV's sake, I think WWE will probably work around it. I wouldn't be surprised if the hard cam faces the entrance in this way, because then you kind of like cut off everything you're seeing on the other two corners. But again, it does, I mean, it's easier said than done, because most of the talent are used to working one way. All of a sudden you get them to work another way, and you're thinking, hang on, how are we going to perform this? So it could throw people out, I don't know. But in any sense, I would imagine that's what WWE got up their sleeves, is turning the camera, the hard cam, towards the entrance and possibly doing something like that. Look, we know we're going to get fireworks. We know we're going to get pyro because it's WrestleMania. They want to make a spectacle, because let's face it, last year, in my opinion, was like, what can you compare it to? I mean, they done the best they could do given the circumstance. They did not see this coming. The fact they still did it, you got to give your hats off to him. But I mean, when you go back that 10, 15 years down the line, I just think it looks so empty. And all you had in between it was Gronk doing his stuff in between, acting like a 13-year-old, in my opinion, having his first beer. It was kind of so goofy, that kind of stuff, that I was like, what is all this about? So for me, I'm not too sure 100% that we'll ever look back at WrestleMania 36 and go, wow. Even though they did kind of go on with it and facilitate doing it, I still think it felt so empty. The only good things coming out of it, let's face it, were, of course, the John Cena Bray match, the Fiend, and of course the other match in all that, which was the Boneyard match, which again, the Boneyard match, look, everyone was giving it praise. I gave it praise, but I don't want to see that every year now. I just don't think that should be a thing. But I'm all for WWE just going hard cam. Looking at the hard cam, he's back again, mate. I tell you, this could be a record for us here tonight.
I'm just gonna switch networks, because this network is just not getting along with Powered4SP3 today. So yeah, we should be good now.
All right. Well, let's see what happens. I was just saying, look, I think the hard cam will be towards the entranceway, SB3, and they may shoot it like that to kind of distract what goes on at either sides, because obviously there's not going to be anybody, it's going to be a bit of a distance. They may even put the ring slightly more to one side, and they could kind of shoot it up at an angle. But they may just want the whole spectacle. They may want the Super Bowl spectacle. They love those long distant shots, don't they? Any other ideas what they could throw in there? You said about what they do with the screens and that, but anything else?
I think they should just keep the seating not too high up, not have any fans too high up, and I think that the top section should be like a larger like Thunderdome. I think that we've kind of gotten used to the screens, and just taking away completely for WrestleMania would just be a little too jarring without a full capacity crowd there. So I think that's the best way for them to go about it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think, they'll work around. They've got plenty of time now. Obviously, last year they had a couple of weeks, and they had to get it all done. They had to tape it. In fact, it wasn't even live. So I feel like they'll be a lot better prepared for this. It's almost like a rerun, if you will, that was supposed to happen. Okay, so look, we're interesting to see what happens there. Don't forget, guys, sign up now. Powered4.TV. Use this code 50% off. All you got to do is use SP3. How easy can it be? Fly over there now. Powered4.TV. Over 25 promotions, including our flagship shows, TNT Extreme Wrestling, Chicagoland Championship Wrestling, Mr. Bullard that was on our friends over at Wrestling Travel last week. Fantastic promoter. I'm hoping to have him on very soon as well. I'm actually representing, I should say, I am representing, let me just take this off because you're not going to be able to see it, like we should here. But I don't know if you can see this, SP3, but the Chicago connection, which realistically don't suit Mr. Bullard, because they're coming in here from a different angle. I've told Mr. Bullard before, even though we've negotiated this deal to have him on Powered 4, I've told him that he needs to take a bit more notice of Mr. Myers and everybody at the Chicago connection. So that's why I'm repping this on this show, on this one. But nonetheless, other news across the pond in my neck of the woods now, SP3. We had some great news just coming this past weekend, which, of course, Progress Wrestling will be returning this Saturday on both Demand Progress and also the WWE Network. Really can't wait for that. As I'm sure a lot of other people, we've not seen them since this whole pandemic. And of course, everything else has happened, but they are back, and they're going to be back with basically a natural progression show with a few added matches in between it as well. I'm really interested to see a lot of those guys, because natural progression in years gone by, it's about looking at the next prospects, if you will. Some of the guys they haven't maybe had the opportunities, and I've got to be honest, there's a lot to look forward to, and we are going to have one of them here next week on Powered 4 TV as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. But SP3, I know that you're in New York, you're in the glamour over there, you've got wrestling all over the place, but Progress Wrestling, I've got to ask, what is the perception from that side of the pond? I know Progress have done events there, we've seen them up in Canada as well and stuff like that. What is the perception of a Progress over your side of the pond?
I would say like 2-3 years ago, Progress was definitely considered the peak when it came to British wrestling. When it came to the best, when it came to independent wrestling in the UK, everyone looked at Progress. You had guys like the British Strong Style come out of there. You had guys from the American independents like Matt Riddle, Timothy Thatcher working over there, and it's the promotion that I discovered one of my favorite wrestlers today, Volta, yes. And his dominant,
you and me both.
His dominant run as the Atlas champion, going into his dominant run as the Progress champion, he really just made me really be like, okay, I need to pay attention to Progress. I need to know what's going on. I need to look back on its history, and I got to go back and look at different rivalries like Will Ospreay versus Jimmy Havoc. Got to see guys like Marty Scurll came out of there, and Zack Sabre Jr. Every top UK wrestler of the past decade kind of went through Progress. Even someone like a Finn Balor, who kind of made his name and carved out his name in New Japan, he came through Progress as well in the early shows. So Progress was kind of looked at as the hub for the best that UK independent wrestling had to offer. However, now, 2-3 years later, it's kind of considered, a WWE developmental for more or less, because Progress is like a gateway into NXT UK. When you look at NXT UK now, it's basically the Progress roster from two years ago, a year and a half ago. So, NXT UK, I've said it once, I'll say it again. It's probably the most underrated brand of WWE because they consistently deliver quality professional wrestling, good storylines, simple yet effective of their character building and their promo work. But it's all there, and it all was born out of what Progress made famous. So I'm hoping that the natural progression is a gateway for new stars to be born, and stars that they can cultivate in Progress for a few years, so they can really like make their name for themselves outside of just being a WWE developmental again.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I see, and I've said this before, I see Progress as like the adult version of NXT UK. I see them still being able to do things that you're not going to quite see on NXT UK, even though NXT UK is still very far apart from what we see on other WWE television, because they're on the network and they don't really have to appease for television. I still think Progress has identity in that area where maybe NXT UK cannot go. So it's like for all the good stuff that we've seen of Walter, I kind of still feel he's slightly limited, even there. Let's a couple of the matches I just want to throw up on screen here. These are the ones that have been announced. We've got Millie McKenzie will be in action against Mercedes Blaze. It's going to be a great match. Big fan of Millie McKenzie. She's absolutely awesome. And of course, just yesterday, this was announced. Cara Noir and Dan Maloney, massive match there been made. That's gone down very, very well from what I've seen across all the socials. Of course, Cara Noir has been certainly making a name for himself, very, very well established now in the UK side of things. And, one of my favorite kind of characters. I mean, in terms of the independent, you don't always see it, but it's nice when it comes along out of nowhere. And I kind of enjoy it. I enjoy somebody who's put that much effort and into what he's doing. And I remember the first few times I saw him come out, and I was a bit like scratching my head, like, what? Where are we going with this? But, to his credit, because he stayed with it, because he was passionate about it, it worked. And obviously it's paid dividends ever since. So this Saturday, available on demand, Progress and the WWE Network. So it's also a prime spot for them as well on the network, I've got to say. Kudos for that, because again, like I said, it's interesting because we have NXT UK and now we have Progress, and it's like current Progress as well. So fascinated to see what comes up. And don't forget, next week we're going to have one of the competitors from the natural progression on with us, maybe even a few more as well by then, particularly maybe even joining us as well, which will be really, really good. So looking forward to that. Stay tuned for more. Okay, now it's time. Actually, before I think we'll go there now. We'll throw this one on you, SP3. It's that time of the week, the most diabolical what if. That's what I'm calling it now. It shouldn't just be what if. It's the most diabolical, because they come out of nowhere. Okay, Vince Jr., back in the day, SB3, he says, you know what? I don't fancy this, Dad. I'm going to go and do something else. I'm going to go and work a little bit easier. I'm going to, take up marketing somewhere for some other conglomerate. I'm not getting into wrestling. You just have it. What happens, SB3? The WWF back then, does it just stay in the territories, or does somebody else pick up the reins, and does somebody else somewhere else have the foresight with television and go, right, we just need one thing here?
I think eventually, we would have had someone who kind of took the reins and got it to television, made it a global powerhouse the way it is today. But it doesn't happen in 1983. It doesn't happen that early. I think that Vince McMahon's drive and his need, he's kind of like, the evil villain in most movies. He wants to take over the world. And I think that's a complex at the same time as a positive trait of Vince McMahon. And I think that's the reason why he shut down the whole territory system, got all the best talent from each territory, bought TV, TV revenue to get a slot on TBS, and then from there on to USA. It all is because of Vince McMahon and the way his mind thinks. He thinks like a mixture of Dr. Evil meets Hannibal Lecter. He wants to take down everybody. He wants to take over the world, and he wants everyone to be servient to him. However, like Vince McMahon, for all the bad we can say about him, yeah, I don't think that we would get WrestleMania without Vince McMahon taking over from his father. I don't think that we would have got the Rock and Wrestling era. I don't think the connection and the partnership with Cyndi Lauper coming over
MTV.
with MTV doesn't happen without Vince McMahon. Without WrestleMania, who knows if they get the TV deals that they get today without WrestleMania? Like it's you were very much taking the timeline and totally turning it backwards. Like the last week's what if of if Vince screwed Brett. It was highly improbable, but it was like, okay, I can envision this happening. I can envision Sean going to WCW, being more successful in the NWO than what Brett was. And I could see Brett being used as passing the torch from to Stone Cold Steve Austin that Sean was at WrestleMania 14. We didn't even really get to go into what would happen after WrestleMania 14 for Brett, because Brett probably would have wrestled like 5-6 more years than he did in WCW. But with this situation, it's like, when does wrestling become big time? Does it become big time when Ted Turner buys WCW? That probably is when wrestling hits the big time. And then WWF is playing catch up to WCW, which is basically WCW. If you don't know your information, don't know your history, WCW wasn't even in existence in 1990. It was the NWA. He bought the NWA and made it World Championship Wrestling. So I think that is when wrestling would move up to a global platform and get that mainstream coverage. And then WWF would be in the position of WCW was in 1990, and they're playing catch up and trying to catch up to the global conglomerate that was WCW at the time, because they had Ted Turner's pockets mixed with talent coming over. You got Ric Flair in his prime, you got Sting in his prime, you got Lex Luger, you got Big Van Vader coming in. So they would have been an even bigger success than they were in 1991, 1992, if they are the first big wrestling promotion to go global. WWF would just be following behind. And who knows what happens by the time we get to 1996 and the Attitude Era and the NWO. What happens then? I don't know. But for now, all I can say, Vince doesn't take over from his father. No WrestleMania, no Rock and Wrestling era, and WCW becomes the global powerhouse, not WWF first.
Interesting. Now, I was just thinking about all these ideas. I tell you one thing that I think would have been different. Well, we probably wouldn't be here for one, but another thing would be the fact that I kind of feel like wrestling would still be considered wrestling, like where we can call them wrestlers.
Yeah,
I'm not sure Vince Senior would have gone down that route of, Vince McMahon. Don't say what is it? You can't say belts. I think you've got to say titles. There's a whole list of things. I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have gone so far that way, where we can't say wrestlers and we have to say superstars instead, and instead of fans it's universe, and just these other weird kind of phrases that he comes out with. So I wonder if in a lot of ways we would have had, like, I suppose culturally professional wrestling, which has always kind of been there in the US, but just more equal and a little bit more spread out perhaps, rather than just all under one roof. I kind of feel, I suppose there's somebody that would have come along eventually and would have just put 2 and 2 together and gone, we just need to get on the biggest TV stations here that just goes out and distributes to everyone. Let's just do it. But I do feel it would have been a little bit more equal nonetheless. But, mate, you've done well. You've done well there to answer diabolical. Go on, my friend.
I think this is an accurate title for it, because that's diabolical, because of how much you were you're taking away from history. No WrestleMania, no Rock and Wrestling era. I thought about it as well. No Hulk Hogan. Imagine wrestling without Hulk Hogan. And that's all Vince Jr. Vince Jr. was the one that saw Hogan in Rocky 3 and was like, you know, that's going to be my guy. That's going to be the guy that I want to beat the Iron Sheik and become WWF champion when I take wrestling global. So without Vince Jr., there's no Hulkamania, no Hulk Hogan. Man, there's no NWO then. So you're affecting both companies. So yeah, this is very diabolical.
I've got a few comments. I've got someone challenging you here, SP3, on your time scale. Let's bring out. We got Craig S. I'm sorry to correct you, but WCW did exist in 1990. Ted Turner did not buy the NWA. Ted Turner brought. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I hope you accept your punishment. Yeah, well, nice one there, Craig. I'm glad we got you with us, buddy. Correcting us there. Well, we got NXT kicked ass last night. Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of with you there. Hello, gentlemen. Yes, we're hello to you as well. And we got Craig. Craig S is back again. He's going to be like our producer in the back there, making sure these things happen. Very knowledgeable, Craig. Very, very knowledgeable. Let us know what you would think. Do you think, Craig, that we would be talking wrestling or entertainment, as it has gone down that road so much today, I have to say. Coming up, we've got some more wild stuff. We're going to be talking about Impact Wrestling and, of course, SP3's The Gem of New Japan and what all that involves. I'm intrigued because I know very little. So I'm hoping to find that from you, SP3, about some of this. But all that and more when we return after a quick look at Powered4SP3. This is from Clash Wrestling, featuring none other than Cara Noir himself.
There's one man with potentially a better winning record than Cara Noir. What? He's cashing in. Cara Noir does not look happy, does not look comfortable right now. For the first time in his title reign, I think Cara Noir feels like he is facing a legitimate threat right now. Sammy Smooth is ready for this.
Very ready. He's encouraging him to ring the bell. And there is the bell.
Cara Noir looks... TJ, I don't think I've ever seen Cara Noir look this uncomfortable in a ring before. Oh! He refused to say he was ready to... Oh, yeah, now he's ready.
Ring the
now
bell.
He's ready.
Of course.
Big shout out to Clash Wrestling, which, by the way, is available for free on Powered4SP3. It's exclusive to us, but it is available for free, so you don't even have to put any money down to watch this. It's a fantastic wrestling product. It's like watching a series on Netflix, like binge watching, because you get a start and you get a finish, and there's a big finale to it all as well. So well worth checking out Clash Wrestling there. Go and check it out now on Powered4SP3. But next, we got some interesting news that broke. And of course, it's been all over the place with what New Japan are doing with their TV stuff. And we found that out the week before. But now even more interesting news. And I suppose, SP3, I think when I was on your show, I think even back then, you kind of forecast what we now have seen in the last week. I'm sure you mentioned something about that. Don't quote me on that, but I'm sure it was on your show. But nonetheless, Impact Wrestling and New Japan partnership. What is all this about, SP3, and how much are we to read into this? Is this now? Is this a partnership of business, or is this just something that they're trying out? Well, tell us more.
So basically, this has been a couple of months in the making. What PW Insider reports is the deal between Impact and New Japan Pro Wrestling was reportedly the result of months of work to repair the damaged relationship between the two promotions, starting back in the summer of 2020 with Scott D'Amore and Don Callis trying to repair things. D'Amore and other Impact executives apparently flew to Japan after Anthem took over Impact ownership and formally apologized to the New Japan Pro Wrestling locker room and company for the past issues between New Japan and Impact, which stemmed from previous management. New Japan having interest in using the Good Brothers was also one of the factors on bringing the two sides together. Both sides are hoping that FinJuice, which was announced at the Impact Wrestling No Surrender Impact Plus event over the weekend, FinJuice will be appearing in Impact Wrestling starting this Tuesday. And this is just the beginning of what will become a larger working relationship between the two promotions. So this is something that, I've been talking about for, I believe, almost 2 years now, because of the whole Anthem taking over Impact Wrestling. And, that when that first happened and we knew Impact was coming over to Access, New Japan Pro Wrestling was on Access TV at the time. So one of the questions that fans had was, what does this mean for the future of New Japan on US television? Could New Japan work with Impact Wrestling and have both promotions on Access TV working together? When that originally happened, was of the belief that wasn't going to happen. Now, for people that aren't knowledgeable, Impact messed up about 10 years ago. They brought in Kazuchika Okada, who is now one of the all-time greats in New Japan Pro Wrestling history. But at that time, 10 years ago, he was pretty much just finished up his Young Lion stint, his first year or so in the wrestling business. He went over to Mexico, did some training over there on excursion, and came to the US to TNA at the time. TNA didn't know what to do with him and basically dressed him up as the butler or the driver from Green Hornet. He wasn't even Okada. He was Okatu or something like that. He was like a servant for Samoa Joe. They just completely buried him, and it was just embarrassing to see, to the point that they had to bring him back to New Japan and give him one of the greatest pushes of all time to make people completely forget about that stint in TNA. And ever since then, New Japan have been have a lot of animosity towards Impact Wrestling and TNA. But like I said in that report from PW Insider, this is from the previous management, which was what Dixie Carter, Vince Russo, I believe, was a part of creative at the time when they did that to Okada, of course. So, the more he's been really good for Impact ever since coming in 2018. Don Callis the same, but Don Callis also has that connection with New Japan Pro Wrestling, being one of their commentators for the last couple of years. So they have kind of made it their mission to kind of put the two sides back on the positive side of the ledger, and bringing them together is a jolt of adrenaline for Impact Wrestling, because Impact Wrestling, the partnership with AEW got people more interested in Impact and got people to turn the channel and tune into them on Tuesday night. But bringing in New Japan as well, and New Japan stars, and potentially we could see the new and improved Okada, the Rainmaker Okada, in Impact Wrestling. And 2-3 years ago, I would have never fathomed this happening. But, FinJuice coming in is a great move. Juice Robinson has been one of the most improved professional wrestlers of the past decade. From his time as CJ Parker in NXT, you wouldn't even recognize him now as Juice Robinson. He just has so much confidence. He's one of the best promos in professional wrestling. One of the absolute best babyface promos. No one fires up a crowd like Juice Robinson. David Finlay, he's very young, but he's got the lineage of his family being the son of Fit Finlay, and him coming in, getting more development, being mixing it up with guys like Rich Swann, Chris Bay, Ace Austin, even the guys that have WWE experience like Brian Myers, Matt Cardona, is going to do him a wealth of good. So this is a great move for their careers, but the bigger thing is Impact and New Japan working together. And another note from Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, he also noted that Kazuchika Okada is definitely coming over. He's just not sure of which company he will be coming over with, whether it will be Impact Wrestling or AEW. But he did confirm Okada is coming to the US for one of those promotions, which is huge either way.
Wow. Just quickly, we got Craig S. Thank you for sharing the footage of Cara Noir. Oh, you're welcome. We've got plenty of him. Go and check that out on Powered4SP3 for anyone. Mate, that sounds interesting as hell. I mean, the fact they had to go back and make this crazy apology, and I mean, they must have been difficult. Let me ask you a question. I might sound a bit dumb here, but obviously they had a working relationship with Ring of Honor. Is that totally now gone? Does that not exist because of this? Or does Ring of Honor, do they come in from another side as well? What happens with those guys?
I just think that it's difficult right now for both sides to work out due to the travel restrictions going on. But in all honesty, Ring of Honor is in a very tough situation what they're in right now, because they had so much bad press at the end of like 2019 and then 2020 with like the speaking out movement, and like the guy that kind of was reviving them at the end of 2019 and early 2020 was re-signing Marty Scurll. Like for companies like Ring of Honor and in Impact Wrestling, it's all about them right now building stars of their own, and stars that they can call, you know, an Impact guy, a ROH guy. You know, Impact Wrestling did it recently, re-signing Trey Miguel when Trey Miguel had deals from AEW and WWE. That's a very much a like an accomplishment for them to hold on to a guy that's that young, that doesn't have the stench from being in another promotion, that they can call a guy for their future. And Marty Scurll, even though he's in his early 30s, he was that guy for Ring of Honor when they re-signed him, made him a part of their booking team. And then the whole speaking out movement happened, and it kind of not only hurt Marty Scurll in the future of his career, but it also hurt Ring of Honor. And it took them months to separate themselves from Marty Scurll. So I think that has a lot to do with that, because in New Japan's eyes, I feel like the main star that they wanted to use from Ring of Honor was Marty Scurll. So with losing Marty Scurll, I think that it does lose some of the incentive for New Japan Pro Wrestling to continue their partnership with Ring of Honor. They still have a lot of bad blood from 2019 with the G1 Supercard, with their use of Enzo Amore and Big Cass. So yeah, I mean, it's a strange situation, but I feel like that relationship between ROH and New Japan has been deteriorating ever since the G1 Supercard in their decision.
Absolutely. And just as a fan here, this is just off the top of my head, I'm a huge fan of the Briscoe brothers. And I'll tell you what, there's nobody more dedicated to one promotion, it seems, than those two guys. Are they ever going to move? Are they just planted now? They are ROH for life. Are they the true lifers of that company?
Yeah. Like I've so many times wanted the Briscoes to come over. I pretty much wanted the Briscoes to even come over to WWE, since their whole cosmetically.
What would they do with them, though? I mean, would that be wise?
I think that they fit in with the new era of NXT that has been coming in since 2014. If you look at the NXT roster, other than Rhea Ripley's now on the main roster, but I'll include her. Rhea Ripley, Raquel Gonzalez, Velveteen Dream. That's the only people that they have developed in the Performance Center. Everyone else comes from either Ring of Honor, New Japan, Impact Wrestling, somewhere on the independence progress, like we said before. Like you look at the takeover card from last night. Balor started off in New Japan. Pete Dunne started off in Progress. Kashida started off in New Japan. Johnny Gargano started off in Dragon Gate USA. You got Dakota Kai. She started off in Shimmer. You got Ember Moon started off in Shimmer. Shotzi Blackheart was in Evolve. You got MSK, who were in Impact Wrestling, and PWG. You got the Grizzled Young Veterans, who were in Progress. So like you look up and down the NXT roster, there's no one that is 100% from their Performance Center other than three people. That's why I give them so much, credit for how they booked Raquel Gonzalez, because that's a homegrown star that they are developing, doing a great job of developing. But there's no one really that comes from developmental. It all comes from these outside promotions.
Interesting that you put it like that, and probably like I kind of feel like the development center needs almost like another layer now. where we, I don't know, we just don't see them at all. I spoke about that last Wednesday on one of my lives. I said about when wrestlers used to come in, we was talking about Carlito and when he turned up with the vignette and how much that did for him. But now you can't really do that from guys from NXT because they're so exposed. And the days of internet, like you might not have seen too much of Carlito unless you was like really heavily into Puerto Rico and his dad and the homegrown territories there. But nowadays it's a different ball game, and I kind of feel like the exposure is just there. I mean, you've only got to look at what we got here at Powered4. You know, a lot of those promotions are from the very lowest versions of independent wrestling to the biggest, and you can see these guys on video. It's not a difficult thing anymore. So it's like the dynamic of following a wrestler now has totally changed, where you introduce somebody. And this is why I think WWE struggle when they repackage somebody, because it's almost like, hang on a minute, I've invested all this time. I know this guy. I watched him down my local wrestling. Now who's this? It's, I don't know, like the plumber from God knows who that they put on.
L.A. Knight. Like L.A. Knights, the former Eli Drake, who debuted.
Yes, exactly. That's confused a few people, isn't it? No doubt about that. But yeah, interesting times there for New Japan and obviously their relationships. I'm guessing, just before I know you got something to say, but I'm guessing, I don't know if this does more here for the club and the Bullet Club. Does this another added edition? Are they going to go back to that in any way? Because merchandise, let's put it that it's one of their biggest ones, right? I mean, they can't not look at it and think there's money involved.
Yeah, I mean, New Japan right behind New Japan. Funny enough, because most American and UK fans will just automatically think, oh, New Japan, their highest selling merchandise is the Bullet Club. It's actually not. It's actually Los Ingobernables de Japón, which is LIJ, led by Tetsuya Naito. They're the top.
I think he was going to spell it then.
They're the top draws in New Japan when it comes to merchandise. But Bullet Club is right close to there, and bringing in the Good Brothers will only elevate the Bullet Club in New Japan. And, you know, they had plans previously in 2019 when they did the whole angle with 2019 into 2020, they did the whole angle with John Moxley. They wanted to have Carl Anderson come in and be the challenger for Moxley for the US title at Wrestle Kingdom, but due to the whole Good Brothers at the time re-signing with WWE, that's why that plan never came to fruition. But we know New Japan wants to use the Good Brothers, so we know that it's going to happen. But the other thing I wanted to take note of is not just the Impact New Japan side of things, but also the AEW Impact side of things, because it was reported by Slam Wrestling over the weekend that Sammy Guevara, who recently split from the Inner Circle, was supposed to be used on Impact Wrestling. Apparently, Chris Jericho came up with a creative idea to have Sammy, since he's left the Inner Circle, left AEW, for him to appear on Impact Wrestling. But apparently Sammy Guevara didn't agree with Impact's idea creatively for him, using him on Impact Wrestling. So he denied their creative decision. So apparently Jericho contacted Don Callis to not have Sammy appear on Impact Wrestling. But Fightful Select as well as Wrestling Observer Radio have confirmed that it shouldn't have any ill effect on the AEW Impact Wrestling relationship. But it's very interesting that already there is some type of conflict with this whole partnership, with one person not really liking the creative brought to them from Impact.
Yeah, you wonder how long that's going to last then, overall. Yeah. Just going to give a quick shout out to Sonny G. He's going to be on later from 7 p.m. on our football show added time. It's a different day this week because, of course, we had Valentine's Day yesterday. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys wouldn't have got out of that for love nor money to come on at 7 p.m. last night to do a football show. So they're back tonight, 7 p.m. live here where we are now. Sonny, also, we had some questions about Logan Paul like you did. So, but SP3 has put my mind at rest for now, I hope. I really don't want to see that, but who knows? Who knows? Okay, well, we haven't probably got enough time for a true or false. So I'm going to do something else. I am throwing another curveball at you this week, Mr. SP3. Da-da! It's Q&A with SP3. I'm going to just run through some questions because I think this will be a little bit more quicker, but let's go here. Let's see how you do. I've got some random WWE trivia just come up, so we'll see what happens here for Mr. SP3, the Oracle himself, of course. So here we go. Let's see. Okay, so question number 1. Let's do 4. I mean, this is pretty simplistic, but who knows? What are the Rey Mysterio's finishers?
The 619 and the West Coast Pop.
You got that in 1. I mean, that was too simple for someone like SP3. Really, wasn't it? I mean, way too simple. What else we got? Who was the Raw general manager before AJ Lee? If you can remember that. I remember that most ridiculous thing when, was it Daniel Bryan and AJ were going to get married, and then Vince comes out and he looks back and then it's AJ. And it's
AJ. I'm gonna say,
can you remember that far back?
I'm gonna say People Power John Laurinaitis.
Executive Vice President of Talent Relations. No, it is not. I'm afraid it is. Excuse me, Vicky Guerrero here.
Oh my
this.
God!
So,
you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you, Mr. SP3. It's always that second question. This is like the true or false the week before.
Wait. So Laurinaitis was taken out of power in June of 2012 because I remember this exact timeline because he main evented.
We may have to have a VAR on this.
Yeah, we might have.
We may need Craig in the comments to get back on to let us know if this site that I'm using, I'm not going to name it, is correct or not, because we think there might be some discrepancy here. Because
July 2012 was when AJ Lee became Raw general manager. So if Vicky Guerrero was Raw general manager for like 2-3 weeks, I don't think that should count. I think it's John Laurinaitis. And then,
we'll see. We'll see. Okay, another year one here. This will make you happy. In what year did Mr. Kennedy debut in WWE?
Canada.
I need the mic to drop down.
Canada. Man, that's a hard one because I know it's like
you want like an option,
either 2005 or 2006. I'm pretty sure
it's 2005. 2005. I'll give you that one. It was a difficult one because like he had different spells in WWE. Like he was up and down like a yo-yo for a while. Okay, last question then. What do we got here? At WrestleMania 22, Shawn Michaels defeated Mr. McMahon in what was the stipulation to the match at that WrestleMania?
Man,
according to them.
This is an issue because how am I supposed to know the difference between a no disqualification match, a no holds barred match, and a street fight when they're all the same rules? Like,
well, not according to WWE, they're not.
It's one of those three because I know that much.
Well, I'll tell you this much: it is definitely one of those three. But you've got to pick.
I'm gonna go with a street fight.
It was, according to this, no holds barred.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
It's different. It's a completely different match.
Why is a street fight? Pins are only in the ring. If it's a street fight, like there should be pins anywhere. If it should be on the street, like it just doesn't make sense.
Well, obviously they like to build it up in different ways. Look, at the end of the day, a hardcore match was what? I mean, we can say that much as well. Maybe pins, the 24/7 title. My goodness, who knows what on earth the stipulations are there? But in any case, yeah, Craig also says street fight as well. He agrees with you there.
Thank you,
I suppose. I mean, they just need to wrap this stuff up in one thing and just have some consistency. I mean. That's all there is. If you go back on street fights and no holds bars, no DQ, I don't know if there is much difference in any of those. Is one where you can pin anywhere? I don't know.
Hardcore is where you can.
But that would be false count anywhere, wouldn't it? That'd just be like Well, there you go. Towards the end, some some confusion, some debate. But we'll find out. I'll find out, SP3, if I can give you 4 out of 4 with the whole John Laurinaitis business there. The executive vice president of talent relations himself. What a character he was. One of my favorites, actually. Just hilarious to see him come out basically as himself. For the most part, but then you saw Divas, and I had a completely different layer to the guy, so you can go elsewhere. Anyway, my friend, we are at the end of this show. It's been a blast. I know you are busier than ever. Last week you was doing, I believe, the first Sports Kida show as well for Talks. Is it Talk SmackDown or SmackDown Talk? One of the two, I'm sure. Smack Talk. Okay, so they're cutting in between. But tell us everything you've got coming up, especially on you guys over at True Heel Heat that you can catch on Powered4.tv.
Yes, check us out. True Heel Heat is our YouTube channel. We have daily content over there. I want to thank everyone who have supported us already. We hit our 1K milestone just last week. So thank you so much to everyone at Powered4TV, everyone watching this show, as well as everyone that watches anything on the True Heel Heat YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate that. Right now, you can check out the New Japan Pro Wrestling, The New Beginning in Hiroshima, Night 1 roundtable review. It's going to be with myself, J News of J News Japan, the Stat King of Dark Power, as well as a special guest, Tempest from Wrestle Talk. So definitely check that out. Which brings me to Wednesday. You can catch me live on the Wrestling Daily YouTube channel with Alex McCarthy at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. BST with Wrestling Daily. We talk about all the latest wrestling news, as well as a great debate. I love my debates, and I'm undefeated. So my record says I'm undefeated.
It's got an Undertaker thing going on.
I am the Undertaker of wrestling debates, and I prove it every Wednesday on Wrestling Daily. So definitely check that out. And this Friday, I'm going to be on Sports Kida Wrestling YouTube channel twice. In the morning on Friday with Joe Hilbert of Fightful Wrestling. We're going to be previewing the entire WWE Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, as well as Friday evening, immediately after SmackDown. I'm going to be back on Smack Talk, this time with Rick Ucchino, the host, and we're going to break down everything from the SmackDown show. So check me out. It'll be on YouTube pretty much this entire week. So check me out.
Fair enough.
Wrestling Daily. All
man, you are busy. I tell you that much. You are busy. I hope you've got like a diary. Are you a diary person, or are you just keeping this up here?
I keep it up here for the most part.
Same as me. So we're both all over the place. Craig just says he missed part of the question. The question was, who was the Raw general manager before they gave it to AJ Lee? According to this, it's Vicky Guerrero, but it could be John Laurinaitis. We're asking you that question. You can drop it in the comments after we've finished, and we'll revisit that next week.
Right? You said before AJ Lee, right?
Yes, before.
The person who answered that gave you the answer, gave you the general manager after AJ Lee. That I just thought of it. Vicky became general manager after AJ Lee, not before.
Well, it says before here, but we'll get to that. I'll give it to you. Don't worry, SP3. I'll give it to you next week. We will revisit this. He's not going to forget this now, I'll tell you. Now, guys, you can check me out again. I'll be back on Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. GMT time in the UK, where I'll be doing an hour again. We talk about all things just by myself solo about some of the old wrestlers. Last week, we were talking about Repo Man. We were talking about Honky Tonk, and who else did we even put in there? And Doink the Clown, of all people. And we were just going all over the place, but we'll be revisiting some of those old and greats, all those old characters, the days basically where your occupation had to be anything but a wrestler, it seemed, in WWF. Check that out this Wednesday, 11:30. Don't forget, coming up after this at 7 p.m. added time. Been blast with you again, SP3. I hope you have another fantastic week, and I'm sure we're going to get loads more news for next week as well, especially with WWE in the road to WrestleMania, of course. I'm going to literally play out our friends from over at Chicagoland Championship Wrestling. Until next week, I've been John Scott. He's been SP3. We'll see you next time.